Hi, I'm Paul Massey. For my entire career, I've been selling buildings in the greatest city in the world. You guessed it, New York. I've learned a lot about life and business over the years, and now I get to share it with you, building by building, block by block. Hi, it's Paul Massey, host of Block by Block. I'm here with my longtime friend, partner, Avis & Young star, James Nelson, fellow investment sales broker as well. So welcome. Thanks for coming here.
Thanks, Paul. Thrilled to be here with you as well. Really excited to have this conversation and just feel so fortunate to also be such an incredible friend, and you continue to be such an incredible mentor, not just for me, but for so many people in the business. So thank you.
Thank you. So I thought one of the topics today could be that 50th birthday party that I attended
Right.
a couple of weeks ago, which was a blast. And
Thank you.
I'm remiss because I didn't invite you to wear your outfit. But I think it's on your, it might be on your Insta account.
Yes,
And
no, actually, that was one of the few events that I didn't post it all over the place. I mean, it was definitely an intimate gathering, shall we say, but a lot of friends from all over the years. So it was so great to have kind of everyone in one place, from family to friends from school, boarding school. A bunch of the Colgate crew, as you know, showed up, and yeah, a lot of fun.
It was great. It was really a great time. And it was a happy crew, and the band was fantastic.
Yes.
But it does make me think about the fact that, I dragged you kicking and screaming out of Colgate when you were 20 years old, and we somehow figured out a way to have you start life at Massey Knakal, and you were almost instantly a hit and a star, and working for Bob was a great launch, but it didn't take you long before you were just doing your own thing, and immensely proud of you for that.
Thank you.
But think how long ago that was. That's
Right.
like 30 years. What a journey. And
Yeah.
what are you thinking about all that, and where you are today?
Well, for starters, I would say back then, and that's very kind of you, but the bar was very low back then. Let's be clear. I don't know if there was many options for you on the table at the time, but it's funny because I was talking, and I know you speak to students all the time, but I had a group in from Colorado University last night, and they're talking about how can they be best prepared for the business. I said, look, you're already doing it. I said, when I graduated as an English major, I didn't even know that real estate was a thing. And so the fact that now, and we could talk about, for better or for worse, the amount of specialization that happens so early on, even as undergrads who are getting hard skills, whether it's Argus training or whatever it is. I mean, for me, it was really just learning on the job. So I was very fortunate to end up at such an incredible spot with such great mentors, but also I really feel, so when I joined you all, that would have been in 1998, so you were already, well on your way to growing Massey Knakal. But at the time, I mean, that was 20 people, one office. Fast forward 17 years later.
It's so funny how slowly we grew in the first 10 years. I mean, that was 10 years in, and we were adding a person a year.
Right.
But the audience has to hear the story about I was fishing for candidates at Colgate because still no one knew who Massey Knakal was, but I knew the director of the career, they called it the Career Planning Center back then. And so she would feed me good candidates. And she fed me one. He was a really nice guy, ended up not sticking with the real estate business, went off and became a lawyer. But he was a strong candidate, and she told me also you'd be a strong candidate. And I called James, and James said to me, I'm not sure I'm really interested in the job, and I'm heading off to spring party weekend for 2 weeks, and I'll probably call you when I get back. And I'm like looking at the phone like, how dare this kid to talk to me like that? And so, of course, I hired the other kid. And 2 weeks later, James called me up and said, hey, I'm back from spring party weekend. Is the job still available? And the day before, Bob Knakal had come to me and said, hey, I need someone to help me out. Didn't you have two people from Colgate? So, grinding my teeth, I called you up and offered you a spot with Bob, and it was a match made in heaven.
Well,
You guys were so good together.
yeah, and I'll just for it may be close to maybe. I mean, but my recollection, and
Not
certainly
quite.
I think it wasn't from becoming a position of feeling high and mighty, and that I had all these options. Let's be frank. There was nothing, as much going on. But maybe my senior spring year, let's just say maybe my priorities weren't in the right place. So I was very lucky that there still was an opportunity, and I think we joked today I started with very low expectations. The bar was very low, so there was only one way to grow. But hopefully over time,
we appreciated your spirited nature.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great. So, like, looking back, what were the fun MK times? Do you have a crazy memory? Do you have a fun story about life in the early days at MK?
I mean, we were
which
just
I think
talking
we still were.
back before about these. We're calling them kind of sales rewards trips. What it really was an opportunity to get the partners, the top producers together with the families, and we had it so good. We didn't know how good we had it because most of us had never been in another big shop or another firm before. But the idea that every single year, not only would you go down to whether it was the Bahamas or Bermuda. We went up to Scottsdale one year,
Yeah.
and not only to get to go, but to bring the whole family. I mean, what an incredible thing! I remember it must have been in Scottsdale. So my kids were still very young. In fact, maybe TJ wasn't even born yet. So it was probably Luke and Austin. And just to have the opportunity to hang out in such a fun environment. I remember we also did got to do a little rock climbing, so it was fun. But it was, those trips were epic, and it was a family for sure. And I think also that the annual picnic that you did at Larchmont. I mean, just what an incredible thing. And in retrospect, again, could that ever be, recreated? I mean, you couldn't do that at a big shop. I mean, it
Hard
was
to do. So our policy was for the crew out there that it would be the top producers, and that could be defined loosely. If you had a youngish star up and coming, you'd include them, but all the partners, and it was bring whoever you want, no restrictions, like which we could have gotten abused, but everyone was very fair with us, but. We had the kids there. We had some grandparents. We had aunts and uncles. But the neat thing was they'll get to know each other.
Right.
So the bond was way past the nuclear family, which was fun. And we obviously did fun stuff, and it was great. The funny thing about Scottsdale, it was at the Boulders Resort. I don't know, any golfers would love that place. It's these big glacial boulders that landed in the middle of the desert, 10 stories high, lit up at night. It was a magical place. But what you guys probably forget was that the trips had ramped up to the Bahamas, to the Caribbean, to crazy levels. And we weren't really spending crazy money, because if you go as a group, it can be reasonable.
Right.
But it was the recession was just about to hit in 07 or 08, I think the recollection was. And the minute we announced that it was going to be in Scottsdale, I got so many, what's with this domestic trip? We were so spoiled at that point.
Well,
but that one turned out really well.
Yes. Well, I remember the epic holiday dinners as well.
Yeah.
And I remember 2007 peak market was a black tie at the University Club, 7-course meal, full, 5-piece band, and the next, by 2009 it was office potluck. So it's really, but look, to your credit, to our credit, when times were good, we were able to kind of give back, and everybody was able to share in the success. And then when things got tough, I mean,
suck it up.
You do what you have to get by.
Yeah.
So it was really something special that you all created, and the bonds, the connections. And I know Bob is big on his family tree. At last count, I think it was 31 or 32 companies have sprung out of Massey Knakal, and you still see these people everywhere. And it's these are all friendly competitors. I mean, you don't get that sense that it's we're competing for business. It's, hey, you want to see everyone do well.
Yeah.
What a great thing.
Well, there always has been plenty for everybody, but I also think if you think about it, we kind of grew up together, and that's a bond that's once in a career opportunity. I think if you look back, we get accused of being a bit of a fraternity, although we tried to have affirmative action, which the industry still needs, but it was like a frat, and Bob and I were the co-presidents of the frat.
Yes.
But it was a tight knit family group. I used to say, about halfway through Massey Knakal, I would say, we're not a family. You've got your family. We're not really your family. And then I realized about halfway in, we're absolutely part of your family. And,
Absolutely.
And that was a neat thing. So, I mean, I think part of the audience out there are people early in their career. Part of the audience are people, where we are, and I think there's probably some introspection and lessons about where you are right now. You're 50 years old. Like, what does that mean? What's the difference between when you were 20 and when you're 50 in terms of, what's going on with the family? What are you and Allison doing differently now? And
Right.
and because I think people love that roadmap. They want to know what the roadmap is. James has 3 great kids, a fantastic wife. He's brought them all up. They're all over the country, all playing water polo
All
now.
playing water polo.
All 3. Yeah. And you are too, a little bit.
No. I'm a swimmer. I tried to get in the pool a couple times and do some masters, but that is a tough sport. So
Aren't you on the board of the Water Polo Association?
yes, it was a part of that, and it's an incredible sport, and I think for my sons to see the friendships that they've built through that, but also for my oldest who's at USC. Luke, and then my middle son Austin is George Washington. I mean, what an incredible thing to show up to college and have a built-in friend group, and whether it's sports or it could be music or whatever it is. I mean, I think it's so important to really have kind of the community, especially if you're a bigger spot. So it's been a great thing for them.
Are you still tight with the swim team friends from Colgate?
Yeah. In fact, I was up with.
By the way, James has several unbroken records at Colgate.
I don't know about that, but no, still doing it, and it's stayed in touch with a lot of the friends through that. So sports, and I know a big key when you were initially hiring, and you called it a fraternity, but I know you're certainly preferential to athletes, and I think that was probably the only thing that maybe got me that return call, was the fact that I was captain of the swim team. So if someone's an athlete, especially at the D1 level, they know about hard work. They also know about working through disappointment and that stick-to-itiveness. So I know that was a big part of it. But your original question about kind of what's changed, so many things have changed as far as kind of our positions and where we are in our careers, but at the same token, I feel I took on a new role this year, a national role, and after 25 plus years in the business, could I just kind of mail it in and then just kind of, the phone never stops ringing once you've been doing this for a while, and certainly here in New York. But I love the challenge. I love always figuring out how do you do things better, and that's you could call it obsessive.
You're
but
happy with the national
I would
role.
be bored if I wasn't trying to figure out what's next. And I as much as I love the deal making and the negotiating and winning the business, for me it's equally, if not more exciting, as I'm sure it is the same for you, building out a team, building out a company.
Too exciting.
Yeah, no, it's what keeps us going. Again, you could say, James, after all this time, why are you now getting on a plane and traveling every other week or more? And part of that is the family dynamic, which has changed. So I would have never, fortunately, first 25 years, we're solely focused on New York City. The benefit is we're here. This is where our market is. And not to say we wouldn't travel occasionally for a conference or go out to Vegas for ICSC or a client, but 95% is here in New York, whereas now what I'm looking to do is to really strengthen and elevate our sales presence in the top dozen markets across the country. So this is very much a client-facing brokerage
Are those
role.
the top NFL cities?
They're the top, yes, they all have NFL teams, but they're the top dozen cities by dollar volume. So if you look at the US, the top dozen cities do 40% of the dollar volume. So even though our company has 60 offices across the country and growing, and I'm not saying that some of these secondary and tertiary markets, I mean, for example, we have 4 markets in Tennessee alone. So in addition to Nashville, we have Memphis, we have Knoxville. We have one more that I'm forgetting right now. But the point is, sure, there's business to be done there. But if you really want to, make a dent in the sales business, focusing in on those top dozen markets. So, sorry if I'm going off on a tangent. But again, why am I doing this now? The fact that I have 2 kids in college and 1 in high school. I would have never been, if I had to get on a plane every other week, if not more, while the kids were young and I didn't get to see them at night, then what's the point, right? But now I feel like, they're a way I can do this. In fact, even better, Luke being at USC, I can go, and I've spent a bunch of time in LA. I'll go watch a game, and then I'll hang out for an extra couple days and work out of the LA office, or to go visit Austin, hang out at our DC office and take meetings there. So it's been a great thing, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. So hopefully that answers your initial question.
Absolutely. The what's ahead? What's the next 5 to 10 look like? What are you thinking about, or is that too far out?
No, I think, look, I'm constantly revising what's the 5-year plan. I don't think I'm thinking 10 years out, but really for these next 5 years, thinking about the trajectory of our U.S. sales. Gotcha. And the key to this is, and I'm still sitting in New York, right now I'd say 90% of my personal business is in New York. But look, is there a day when half of that's coming across the country? I think it is. And the trick to that, and the key to that, is how to continue to keep the New York machine going and continue to help our clients here while also growing the sales presence. But the more I've experienced it, and again, I'm only a little over 6 months into it, I find that when I'm dealing with clients who have national portfolios, it just opens up the chessboard. So, okay, so you're thinking about maybe diversifying outside of New York. Okay, well, where else are you interested in getting involved? And then that's also opening up conversations about their New York properties. Well, maybe I want to sell in New York and I want to go get some exposure to some Southeast multifamily or whatever it is. So I don't think these 2 different businesses are competing with each other, quite the opposite.
Yeah, I can see that. How are you feeling? Like, how does New York measure up against those other big markets?
Well, as you know, we are very data-driven people, and so I can tell you exactly. New York has historically been the top market in the U.S., although years back, L.A. would kind of, geographically a much larger market, would fight for that number 1 spot. But the first half of this year, New York actually slid to number 3. So Dallas was the number 1 market in the first half of this year.
In terms of dollar
volume, $13.5 billion of sales in Dallas. Overwhelmingly, a lot of that comes from multifamily, $6.5 billion in multifamily. And then San Francisco, which, look, they were knocked out of the top 10, 2020, 21. They've had some real challenges, and they've come roaring back. They actually were San Francisco was the number 1 city in the country the first half of the year for office sales with $3.5 billion. So, is New York going to stay in the number 3 slot? No, I mean, it'll kind of revert back to that, that top spot. But look, I mean, I think the answer is that a lot of investors today are saying, I do want to think about diversification. I mean, I remember we were, for the first 20 years of my career, a lot of our clients held it as a badge of honor. I own my entire portfolios in New York. Why would I ever think of going anywhere else? And I don't even think it was COVID. I mean, COVID maybe accelerated the spread, but the 2019 with the HSTPA, the Housing Stabilization Tenant Protection Act, all of a sudden investors said, wait a second, they can change the rules on us. And I have my entire portfolio here in New York. That might actually be a little bit of a liability. How do I think about diversifying? And not say, hey, completely sell out, but hey, maybe I want to think about getting some exposure to some other markets or asset classes.
Gotcha. How are you feeling about the New York mayoral race?
Interestingly, we have not seen a pause in the action. I think that the buyers who are active and engaging, they're still there. Maybe has prompted some owners who were kind of on the fence to now sell. But we did a white paper on this and actually looked at what happened to sales values and rents under Bloomberg versus de Blasio. Interestingly, values went up under both, more so under Bloomberg, but rents actually went up more under de Blasio. Okay, so some of these unforeseen consequences, and sometimes when if you look at Mamdani, if he was to freeze rent regulation, which happened under de Blasio, as you know, that is just going to put more upward pressure on the on fair market rents. Yep. So we'll see. Again, we know how much impact a mayor has on certain things. We know that Albany, and heard a recent interview with Governor Hochul on the Wall Street Journal, where she said, "Yes, I endorsed Mamdani, but we definitely have our disagreements, and it's very important to keep business and our top taxpayers here in the state and in the city." So hopefully there'll be some checks and balances. I still have to say it's a disappointment that we don't have others like you who really, the ultimate commitment and sacrifice to do public service, right? And it just amazes me today that if you look at the mayoral contest, you look at the governors, it's always these career politicians, right? Why is no one from the private sector not raising their hand and saying, I want to step up? And maybe because, how polarizing things have become and who wants to put their life under, a microscope. But I think it's a real shame. And if you look at what's happened in San Francisco, where I've been out there a couple times in the last year, everyone's loving this new mayor, and he has really impacted change. It's quality of life, safety. Those are really big things. And if you can't have that, everything else, becomes secondary. Right?
I would have loved the job. 53 departments, 300,000 employees. It would. I think big city mayors have power in the sense of being able to affect change in our school system. Business friendly for small and big businesses, and I think it's the thing I worry about if it is Mamdani is he really hasn't run a substantial business, and that's the learning on the job could be a little dicey. Although I heard a great talk 2 weeks ago from Kathy Wild, who's the CEO for Partnership, and she said. Paraphrasing a little bit, but she goes, look who her members are. It's the big CEOs of New York. She said, look, there's one of him and 350 of us, and we're all going to have a voice. So that was comforting. And so it's Jamie Dimon, Michael Bloomberg, they all care about New York, and I'm optimistic that we'll continue to grow.
Well, what's been great, if there's any positive, with what Mamdani is doing so far, is he is engaging with the business community. I know he's had talks with Jamie Dimon and Scott Reckler and the likes, and he's engaging, and that's great, because if you just had a politician who said, I'm not even going to engage with the business community. This is our agenda. This is what we're doing. That's a real problem. So at least he's willing to have the conversation.
She did say that Mamdani called her up and said, "Give me your top 10. Who am I going to call?" And she fed him the phone numbers, and he called. And then Jamie Dimon called up Kathy and said, "Hey, he called me," and he said, "What's interesting? Guess how many times Bill de Blasio called me in 8 years?"
0.
Right.
Yeah.
So not that I have anything against him, but this could be better. This could be better. He's a young guy. He's listening.
There you go.
What's happening for fun other than watching a lot of good water polo? You're swimming?
I am swimming. Yeah, I do masters swimming, so that's usually 2-3 days a week.
What does that mean?
So I'm in a masters swim group that 3 mornings a week at 5:15 a.m.
They compete?
You can individually. No, we're just there to train.
Gotcha.
So swimming's the kind of thing where, I mean, I could do this on my own, but I'm not going to push myself as hard. When you're in there, it's, I mean, it's the same reason why people do team sports. You get in there and you've got a workout, and our coach really pushes us.
Oh,
So
you share times and all that?
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you're doing sets, and sometimes they'll put them up on the board. I did race last spring or fall. It is a little, I don't want to say depressing, but I hold, I really want to, I know I'm not going to be as fast as I was at Colgate, but I want to be somewhere within, within range. And it's, look, I'm happy where I am now. I think the next thing, which I'd love to try to do, because I was a sprinter in college, so I did anything that was kind of drop dead, 50, 100, 2 lengths, 4 lengths to the pool. But now I've gotten in a little bit more to open water swimming, which actually my youngest is doing as well. So we do the Swim Across America event to fundraise every year. That's a 3-mile open swim. I'd love to do more long distance stuff. I actually have a friend who swam around Manhattan, which is insane and really cool. I don't know if I would do the whole thing myself.
Weren't you doing some race that swam in the Hudson for?
Oh yeah, well that's the New York City Triathlon. So
okay.
you go down the Hudson River. That's actually on the easier side.
Is that water clean enough?
It's fine. I mean, you're not drinking it, but it's that was the way they did the triathlon. It was current assisted, which was actually a bad thing if you were a good swimmer, because a bag of chips could have done the mile swim in the Hudson River in like 20 minutes, right? Just floating down. Whereas, you're done with that, and then you got to bike up and down the West Side Highway and run around Central Park. I haven't done a triathlon for a while. I think, and maybe one day, but the open water swimming would like to do more of that.
Gotcha. What else should we be talking about? What's happening in your life?
Well, what else is happening in my life? I will say that with my book, The Insider's Edge to Real Estate Investing, that was definitely a passion project that I did in 2020 when we were all camped out at home and, hey, is it the end of the world? What's going to happen? I remember speaking to one of my coaches, and he said, James, when are you ever going to have time at home? I mean, we're always on the go. So what am I going to do? Write a book on real estate investing. And that has been such a great thing to be able to share, because what I would say is that, for 20 years, I was always asked the question, James, what's the book that teaches you how to invest in real estate? I mean, what is it, right? And there's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's fine if you want to go buy a 4-family and live in one unit. It's a good place to start. Or there's textbooks like the Poor Vu textbook, but there's not a book that actually says, this is how you invest in real estate. These are the players involved. These are the different asset classes. This is how you raise capital. This is how you work with a broker. This is how you find opportunities. This is how you reposition them, close them, et cetera, et cetera. So to be able to put that into a book, it's been a great thing, because now when I was with those students from Colorado last night, I'm handing out copies of the book. I donated the book to every single incoming master's student at NYU, Fordham. And it's... I really feel that if someone reads the book, they'll understand kind of the whole landscape, right? So they're already kind of starting to understand all the different roles, because there's a lot of different ways to get into real estate, right? So that's been great. The latest and greatest with that is I'm going to be rolling out a course on real estate investing to complement the book. So I'm super excited about that, and there'll be some announcements that'll come out in the new year.
Online?
Yes.
With you teaching all of it, or guest teachers, or how is it working?
All online, all on demand. And here's the wild part about it. There's going to be a James Nelson AI instructor. So this is now possible, right? Wow. So what we've done is we've taken everything in the book, the transcripts to my 250 podcasts, over 100 articles that I've written for Forbes, a ton of other stuff. That's all the data and the content.
Bucket. Yeah.
And then the AI will answer questions. You'll be able to engage in the student and say, James, what advice would you give if I'm looking to be an analyst for a real estate
developer? Have you announced this yet?
No. We're breaking news right now, so we will. Yeah, we still need to finish it and package it and get it out there. But it's
this is genius. This is great.
It's going to be really great. And I think even for students today that want to get into this business, a lot of them, and even at the master's programs, they know how to underwrite. They know a lot of these things. But when you ask them, okay, well, how do you find, if you wanted to invest in real estate, you want to go find a property, how do you do that? And they just give you this blank stare. What do you mean? How do you? I said, well, how do you find an opportunity? Where would you start? And we said, well, I don't know. I'm going to be the analyst. I'm just the numbers guy. There's an acquisitions department over there. Well, don't you think that you need to understand the whole process on what to look for in an opportunity, how to unlock the value?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for this, and hopefully it'll encourage a lot more people to get into the business. Or maybe if you don't have the means or the time or the ability to, and master's programs are great and they teach a lot of very helpful hard skills. But I think also, what we're calling it is, the underwriting is kind of the science behind real estate investing. This is more the art of how to do it.
Gotcha.
So,
so if we're talking to the young folks,
mm-hmm.
what are the career moves they have to make in general terms? Not, everyone's got to have specific job functions and titles, but like, what are the big three things to think about to do to make sure your career goes the way you want it to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because we were kind of talking about, when I came into the business, zero real estate experience, but liberal arts education, did a lot of different things.
Well, you can write,
that social
you can write,
aspect,
you can speak.
be able to write, yes. Whereas going in and having that real estate degree, it really, I think the answer is it depends what you want to do. If you want to get into the business as an analyst, right, whether you go work for a brokerage firm or go working for a principal, yes, you're going to have to be good at Excel. Yes, you're going to have to learn Argus. That's really helpful when you have that coursework done. I think if you want to go into sales, getting your salesperson's license, right? So, hey, I'm ready to work. I have my salesperson's license. I passed the New York State exam. I think it's helpful to have that. But I think the big thing is really, and it's the advice you always give, is this is a business about relationships. And you always say, whether you're new to the business or at a crossroad, go meet with 100 people. I think it's brilliant advice. I've shared that so many times. But what you don't want to be is that person who's trying to submit a resume with 300 other people through LinkedIn or through some info at xyzcompany.com. You have to have that connection. And so what I always encourage students to do, or even someone who's at a transition or inflection point of the career, you have to get out there in person. And I think even these conferences are a great way to do it, whether it's a Biz Now breakfast, whether it's getting a student membership for ICSC or ULI and going out there. And the advice I give people, and I say, look, I know it can be a little bit overwhelming to go into a room where you don't know anyone, but I said, pick someone out who's standing by themselves. Trust me, they feel awkward too, and they probably want to talk to somebody. Go up to them and say, hi, I'm a student. I'm just finishing up, my senior year. I've got a real estate degree. I'm looking to get into the business. Can you tell me what you do and give me any advice? Who's not going to say yes to that, right? So I think getting out there, following up, making those connections, and then following through. I think that's such a big thing. I mean, how many times has someone asked you for advice and you give them 15, 20, 30 minutes, you're so generous with your time, and then you never hear from that person again? How many out of 100, because you've helped thousands of people. Let's talk about, out of 100 people, how many of those people follow up more than once after the obligatory thank you email?
Well, I'm guilty of it myself, right? I mean, how many times did you think about, let's build my trust network? Who are the architects, engineers who I've met, lawyers, and how have I cultivated them? When I was early in my career, not much of a thought at all. It was before Outlook, certainly, but even my Rolodex wasn't something I pored over like I could have. And
but to push back, what are these students being taught in school or masters about making connections? That this is so important, and maybe it's they're just not thinking of it, or they say I'm early on, I don't understand. But if you go through all that time and effort to get an incredible introduction, and they have the time to sit with you. And I'm not saying that the right thing to do is to follow up with you every single day, because you can definitely, there could be too much, but checking in every other week, or every once a month.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you again for the advice. I went and thank you for the advice. You suggested I do X, Y, and Z. I did it. I reached out to this person. Thank you. They told me to do this. Do you know the person at this company? I mean, especially someone who's generous with their time, right? And so I think what it is it does kind of separate the people who are going to be top in the business. So does that have to be learned, or is it just inherent? But out of those 100 people, there's probably 2 or 3 that, throughout their first year or even beyond say, hey, James, thank you for spending time with me. I just want to let you know, I just got this great position at, wherever it is. This is what I'm doing. Just wanted to stay in touch.
Yeah.
I mean, that to your point is building that network.
There was one point you brought up about networking and advice I'd love to give people. It can be daunting. I mean, we're not all the personality that walks into the room and and everyone clings to you, right? Most of us are a little shy. But the coaching we give our folks is, look, go into a networking event with one goal, have one real conversation. And if you're out there once a week for, a lot of years, it adds up fast. And when you have that conversation, not this, oh, how's business? Everything's great. Get into it with people. Ask them, where do they live? Do they have a family? What's their, did they, any good vacations lately? I mean, have a real connection conversation and then feel like you're done. I mean, if that's all that's accomplished in a networking event, that's great because it adds up. And that person will remember that interaction because it's personal and it's thoughtful. That's good for 2 or 3 years. And then, as you say, stay in touch with that person. Keep in contact with them. But it's not hard, even if you're a little on the shy side, to be a great networker.
Right. Yeah, I think the idea that a great networker is someone who walks into a room full of people and they walk out with 100 business cards. That's if you're doing that, you're not
the guy with the lampshade, right?
Right. As opposed to really getting to know, 1 or 2 people. It's great advice.
Yeah, I don't love the superficial, how's the weather kind of conversation.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So maybe I could toss it back to you for a minute. I would ask you, what are you looking for? I mean, you've been actively hiring. You mentioned that you just brought on 3 new people to your debt team. What is it when someone reaches out to you where you decide, okay, this is someone who could potentially work with me?
Well, we look for what we talked about, which is you don't want to miss anybody who might not be an athlete, but an athlete's. They know you just don't show up on Saturday and win the game, right?
Right.
You grind it out for months and months before practicing. So I tell people all the fun stuff about our business. I mean, it is exciting. There's lots of freedom. You're dealing with great people. It's competitive in a good way. But the less glamorous, unsexy part of it is that it's a pipeline management business especially for what you and I specifically do. It's you've got to be a great marketer. You've got to stuff marketing and market presence into the pipeline. And then we compete for a lot of what we do. So you've got to learn how to compete and win. And then you've got to actually do the job, which is execute. And then you've got to close the sale so that money comes out the other end of the pipe. But it's if you think about it in that way, and it still appeals to somebody. I say to folks, I've taken 7 to 8 weeks a year off. So I feel like I've got great freedom, even though when I'm on a plane, I'm thinking great thoughts. I'm recharging my batteries. My kids would tell you that I was constantly on the phone when we were on our vacations. But I did, if you think about it, a couple weeks of skiing, a couple weeks at the beach, another family vacation. I mean, it adds up. And
I love the fact that you took ownership of that back when it wasn't en vogue.
Yeah.
I mean, you take us back 20 years, and it was very much kind of the Wall Street. You're on the desk by 7 a.m., and if you're not in, you're late.
Well, I was on the desk by 7 a.m., but not every day.
That's true. But, I mean, the idea, and now with all this, leadership, kind of mindset coaching, and the ability to kind of it's what Rod Santomassimo would talk about, working on your business than in your business. And when you're in it and you're on that transactional treadmill, you're not looking up and seeing the big opportunity. And I think for me, and looking at the opportunity across the country, if I was just sitting there just cranking out, the next sale in New York, I would have missed the big picture. So I think it is so important to take that time. I do want to go back and, as far as career advice, life advice, because I brought this up last night as well. I still remember when you brought in Barbara Corcoran. I mean, this probably goes back 20 years, and I can still remember what she said in that room. And so we're sitting there, and I forget who asked the question, but they said, Barbara, you've hired thousands of people, brokers, right? And you've seen, whatever the success rate is, but what is it about the most successful brokers? How are they different? How are they wired differently? And I know you remember the response to this. And she said, it's how they handle failure. I said, wow, that is that's really an interesting way to look at it. You think, they're hard workers, they do this, but she told that story, remember, of Carrie Chang, and when the market imploded, and where did Carrie go? She was overseas trying to, on one hand, she had a lot of clients who had lost a lot of money, and she was trying to find buyers and sellers and coming back, but it's that ability to never give up, and that is something that I don't know if you can teach that. I think, and so what I was trying to tell these students last night is, look, there's going to be disappointment, whether it's in the real estate business, life, or whatever. Are you someone that's just going to dwell on the problem, or are you focused on what the solution? I got to throw out one other, story from our partners meetings, and I remembered, and there might have been one or two people at those meetings where they like to point out problems, right? And I think finally he said, guys, no more hairballs. What do you mean no more hairballs? Like, think about the cat who just, throws something up on the table. It's like, oh, all right, who's going to deal with it and clean it up? So I think the rule was, don't throw out a hairball unless if you have a solution. Don't come to the table with a problem without a solution. And so what I like to say
that was
now,
a classic moment.
Oh,
that was and it forever changed our partnership. I think.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know what in my head that day.
Yeah. It was
don't puke that hairball up without a solution right behind it.
Spot on. and so today I say, look, guys, I'm in the solution business, not the problem business.
Yeah.
So, right, I'm not looking to complicate things. I want the straightest path from A to B. So, the more we talk, the more I think about so many of these principles that I was so fortunate to learn from you all early on, and that whole culture that, not only prepared to continue growing the business, but life. Like I said, this isn't just about being successful in business, right? It doesn't matter what you do.
Absolutely. Ratcheting back, I got to tell you, Barbara Corcoran is someone I so admire to this day. And I occasionally talk to her about, she's got a multifamily portfolio that her son is leading now, and he's a fantastic, successful guy. But I remember her getting up on the stage in front of the whole company at that same speech. And she steps up there, and she's such a lovable character. She just looks at the audience, she goes, what are y'all doing here? And she points to Bob and I, and she goes, they just don't seem like they're any fun. And somebody in the audience raised their hand and said, they actually are kind of fun. And the whole place went wild. She's a pistol.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yeah, I really love the memories of her. I've got one for you. I've got a CEO coach, a woman who's been at coaching. She's a strategic coach, Teresa Easler, and she's been helping me for a whole bunch of years. She's from Toronto, but we see each other a couple times a year in person. But it's Zoom meeting coaching once a week, and she's fantastic. The big one this year for me has been her teaching me to manage up. And I think this is applicable to people starting their career, people, way down the road in their career like I am. And managing up is having a team around you and delegating in a way that it doesn't roll back on you. Completely empowering the person who wants to do a job with you or for you, whether they're on your management team, whether they're junior to you, whether they're your partner, whoever is delegated, whatever project it is you're working on, that they don't roll it back on you and tell you all the problems that they have, that they fix it, they get it done, they have the power. And, that implies that there are going to be some screw ups. But by completely empowering people and saying it's yours, I've been loving it. And, with the marketing folks and with the operations folks and just saying, look, it's you. It's you. And when they come back at you and tell you what issues they're facing, I'm a player in the play here. It's not my job to help you get it done. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And it's people have responded really, really well. Although I've had to train them and me about the new way of operating. So if you're on a team, or you're delegating on a team, or managing at a high level on a team, think about this concept of managing up. And she said her best students are her best people she's coaching, and these are some seriously big CEOs. The ones she loves the most are the ones who just sit back and smile when there's going to be a train wreck.
Jeez. Well,
but think about that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we've been talking a lot about kind of the sports comparisons, and one of my sons played on a team where the coach, and not that all these coaches yell, but literally would call out every single play, where the kids are frozen to the extent where they don't know what to do until the coach tells them what to do, right? And instead of just improvising and figuring out, and obviously the coach can't tell everybody what to do at the exact same time, right? And so
this guy was radically overbearing.
Yeah, so teaching people how to think for themselves, right? And so then, and again, to your point, when you delegate, people aren't going to do things the same way that you do things, but that's okay. Sometimes it'll be better. I think part of it is also building a team, and you've done this throughout your career, where you have people who complement your skills, right? And also challenge you at times and say, look, and that was what was so special about what we had amongst the partnership and the advisory board, is that people, again, wouldn't be afraid to challenge, but also be proven wrong. And so there's so many lessons in there. But look, if you want to grow and ultimately, be happier, right? If you're just sitting around micromanaging all day, you're never going to grow.
Yeah. If you enable people to really have full responsibility for whatever it is they're responsible for on your team, it pretty quickly becomes evident whether that's their passion or not. So if you have people in passion spots, and I think the partnership we had at MK, everybody was in a passion spot. They were all in love with what they did within the group. And
that's the Jim Collins and the Good to Great books that he gave us all, and it's having the right people on the right bus, but in the right seats.
But if you're managing up,
right,
it very quickly becomes apparent whether someone's truly passionate about their job. Because if they're not digging in and fixing issues or dealing with challenges or going, taking the bumps in the road, then you sit them down and say, look, you can't be perfectly happy doing this, and let's shift you to something else or figure out some other, spot for you.
Right.
And that really that's power. That
Love
brings
it.
out the best for team dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So James, thank you. I've loved this. This was really fun. Thanks for setting aside the time to hang out with me.
Oh, this was amazing, Paul, and so fun to kind of talk about the old days, but also what's ahead. And so I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And join us on the next Block by Block. Thanks.